Hi, my name's Kathy Millett, and this week I'm going to turn this box into a UV curing chamber for my 3D printer. Now, I've just bought an Anycubic Photon, and it's a resin printer and it uses a certain wavelength of UV light to cure that resin. But when it comes out the printer, it needs just a little bit of post-curing, not necessarily a long time, but enough that you can't scratch it. So I've just got this really useful box. It's a plastic box, and I'm going to line it with foil and put some LED UV lights in so that I can create this curing chamber. First thing to do, spray your box with glue and line it with foil so that all your UV light bounces around and doesn't get wasted and escape from your box. So this is just a permanent spray adhesive. I'm using Hobbycraft, Craft Mount, anything will do. Anything that just sprays easily, nice and finely, and will stick your foil to your plastic. And strong foil, doesn't really matter which brand. The stronger it is, the easier it is not to tear it. But if you tear it, don't worry, just fill the hole. Spray the bottom. Actually, I'm going to pull my foil out first. This doesn't have to be neat. Yeah. Oof. Wow, that's getting everywhere. Spray this in a well-ventilated space. I've got my doors open. So just continue around adding more foil till all the inside edges are covered. And if you make a hole, don't worry, just put a bit more glue on and cover it with another piece of foil. Don't forget to do the lid, like I did. To make sure I've got a nice even cure, I'm going to put a turntable in here, and although it's got a mirrored surface, it's a bit scratched, and you can just put it on and your pieces go around, so you don't have to worry about it being too even because they will rotate. And it's battery operated, so I don't need to worry about much else. It is quite tall, but most of the parts that I'm doing will fit within here, no problem. So I don't need to light my lid. You can if you want to, it's not hard to do, you just continue doing what we're going to do with the box. I went on Amazon and bought some 12 volt LED strips, and these are in the right nanometer range, 405 for the Anycubic Photon. You have to check because some of the strips are 365 and we want to be in the right range to cure the resin because it cures at a certain wavelength of light. And other than that, they're just like normal LEDs. Now I've bought the one which had an adapter as well because I didn't want to have to faff finding the right adapter, so I've had these out and plugged them in to check that they work. I'm glad to know they do. I've got 5 meters of strip. And I've got a box and I need to get as many as I can out of the 5 meters. So first of all, I'm going to cut my strips. And when you look at these types, they've got a plastic covering on them, which you can remove. And then they've got a little scissor mark and cut lines. And you have to cut them on those lines so you can solder them. But you can cut in this lot every 3 LEDs. So there's plenty of cut lines. So we're just going to put them in, work it out, and my nearest cut line is that one, so I'm going to cut on there. So I just need the scissors and I'm just going to cut here. Before we go any further, I need to drill a hole for my wire to get out. So simple. So I've got it to this stage and I'm just going to hot glue this in place, and I've got this nifty little box glue pen that makes easy work of it. Oops. And in we pop. A little bit around the edge. And on the inside, just to make sure it's well and truly secure. So next up, I need to solder all these ends together. So soldering may seem hard, but actually it's quite simple. You just need to know a few of the things about it. So you need a soldering iron, needs to be hot, and clean the tip regularly. You need solder, lead-free safest, and you need some flux. This is just normal plumbing flux. And you need something to hold all of your items. Now, unfortunately, my plug's on the wrong side for me, but here we go. So I've got this little handy hole thing, which works really well. Cut a couple of pieces of wire and prep them. So I've got my wire over here and I'm going to cut them using just a parrot wire cutter. This is one of my favourite wire cutters, and you snip them down there and you can use it to just snip each one. Now you don't want too long, that's actually too much. You want quite a small amount so they can't cross and touch each other when you're doing it. So oops, these are all a bit more than I've been doing. And then I just touch those into the flux briefly. They don't need a lot. Try not to get great big gobs because you'll only need to clean it off. And I prime them with solder. So here's my solder, here's my soldering iron, and I just touch them, see? And the flux melts and it just helps the solder flow. It kind of cleans all the tarnish off them. So there we go. And those are soldered now and they're very easy to attach. These bits of LED are a bit harder because they've got this plastic covering on them. It's kind of a silicone covering. So we need to take that off. So a knife and slice it off. This one's actually, I think it was a gap between two previous ones. So you can see it's got solder on there already, and that's not typical. I find it really hard to get rid of this. I end up scraping them quite a bit just to get rid of the last bits of this yucky stuff. And then just a small dot of flux and a bit of solder on your soldering iron, and right, I'm going to put these into my little handy holding about the distance apart of my existing, and this is the one that I'm doing. Now red's on the left and there's a little plus, there's a minus on the right, so I need to match my red and my red wire and my plus. So little bit of solder on there, touch it to there. Don't do it for too long because you don't want to melt any of the stuff further upstream. If you hold it on for a long time, then there is a danger you might do that. And then just same on the black, and we're done. So now all I theoretically need to do is to get my plug and plug it in the side, and they should all light up, and I'm going to check them all the way through to the end, wherever that is. Yes, so they're all lighting up, and this is what UV light looks like. Oh, if I get a tan. Now I need to glue them into place, and they do have a blue strip that you can pull off, and there's glue on the back which I will use, but in my experience of using these, not this brand but other strips like this, that doesn't last as well as it should. So I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue on as well, and I've got this nifty little hot glue gun that I'll use just in a couple of places just to give it a little bit extra grip. As planned, I put 5 long strips and 3 short strips down each of the sides, and I'd made sure when I did my wires that they were cut to those lengths. Unfortunately, it did mean I had a wire that went from one long side to the other side, and I just glued that out of the way of any LED so it didn't mask any of them. And then some of the wires were a little bit stiff and stuck out, so I made sure they were well connected by just putting a big globs, literally globs of hot glue, so that they were well held and they wouldn't pull off and break the LED strip in any way, and they couldn't really move. But you can see why you need your foil to be well glued, because you're actually gluing onto the foil at this point. And do make sure that none of the metal touches the foil, because it is of course conductive and can short out your LED strips. So that's why hot glue also helps, because it stops any connection shorting as you use this in the future. So now all I have to do is put this down, get my turntable, put my model on it, turn my turntable on, turn this over, and find my hole, and away we go. And you can't see that much light coming out because it's mostly sealed by all the foil, which is good. So here we are, a fully functioning UV curing chamber.